It's November 17, 2022. Hello, everybody. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome. This is WESN. This is AM Prime for this day and for this edition. Let's tell you what's happening. We'll be talking in the second hour of the program with Grace Lefoury. She's president of the Society of Planners in Trinidad and Tobago. And the issue is that they are contending that there's a lack of enforcement or an absence of enforcement of the building code. And that is a significant contributor to flooding in different parts of the country. We will talk with them about that. We'll hear about that in the second hour of the program. We're also talking on this edition with Mr. Philip Edward Alexander. He's political leader of an organization known as the Progressive Empowerment Party. And they're saying it's time concerning the state of affairs in the country. And they're having an event called that to bring attention, to greater attention to that issue, what is happening in the country. And it's time to act from their perspective as they see it. But right now, we want to be talking with Mr. Barry Garcia. He's a party activist for the leading party. But for the first time in the party's history, going back 1956 when it was founded, there's legal action to stop the upcoming elections for the leadership positions in the party, the political leader, and other positions in the party. It's more hotly contested than in memory for a lot of people, but in this case, the matter as such and become so contentious that it's going to court. Well, how is that played in the country, but more particularly inside the party? We'll get to Mr. Garcia in a moment. Of course, we take a look around the region. We go to Barbados, we go to Jamaica, we go to St. Lucia, among other places if necessary. So we deal with all of that when we come back, so stay with us.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Whether it's a room for 1, 2, 3 or more, there's a room waiting with the ocean view almost to your door. Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, the perfect getaway when you don't want to travel far. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Crown Point, Tobago. Call 639-8571 for your reservation.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. PCU. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number
of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
People get confused, they go into the grocery and they're like, you know what, I want to change my life. I want to eat better.
As exciting as the front of a label looks, the back of the label is really where it's at. If something has less than 5% in that particular serving of that nutrient, then it's probably a low source. If it has 20 or more, then it's a high source.
Smoothies, I'm not really into that because the texture, or I don't like what people put in this, but the good thing about a smoothie is that you can make it your own. You can literally put whatever you want. If you really like bananas, you can put bananas. If you really don't like bananas, don't put bananas. Like, it's really that simple.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to the program. Well, with us now, PNM party activist Mr. Barry Garcia. He's agreed to talk with us to the extent that he's on top of the information having to do with the matter that is in court, or is going to be in court. Karen Nunes Teixeira, former Minister of Finance and a PNM administration during the first part of the first decade of the 21st century, has filed action challenging the rules governing the elections, which she is contesting the position of a political leader against the current political leader. She's one of those who's contesting that position. She's had some problems. She's had some issues from how she sees it with the way in which election activities have been taking place and the rules of the game this time around. So she's filed action for that. The question is, how is that playing in a party that has existed since 1956? It's the longest running political machinery in the country. One of those in the Caribbean who stood the test of time from that perspective. How is this playing across the membership and the wider population in Trinidad and Tobago? Mr. Garcia has agreed to talk with us about that. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Andy.
All right. So give us a sense of how this thing is playing in party circles, quite apart from the rest of the country. What are people saying about this?
Well, first and foremost, she has a right to challenge the status quo or to challenge anything in the party as per the Constitution. But what is troubling is that she has not been around for the last 10 to 12 years. And it's a bit concerning to the membership of the party that she is now coming up with these challenges. What they are saying is that she should have attended a meeting and trash it out in-house. They don't like the fact that she is going public with it when it is an internal matter. So it doesn't really augurs well for the party. The party not really accustomed to washing its dirty linens in public. But she has a right to challenge anything in the party's constitution, but do it at a general council or do it at a convention, not in the courthouse.
Yeah. So you're saying that opinion inside the party is negative about that. She could have done this differently.
Yeah, the entire party is negative about that. The entire party feels as though she's carrying the party down a road that it may never recover.
Yeah. You think that will hurt her chances if in fact she's still a good chance in the contest?
Of course it has turned, Andy, it has rubbed people the wrong way. And those who are looking at her favorably are now looking at her and saying, but what is this?
Yeah. So
they are now questioning it.
Yeah. You're saying that there were people
because there's an old standard in the PNM that we do not wash our dirty linens in public. We go to Balizi House, or Balizi House is under repairs now, but we go to General Council and we cough, we fight, we cuss, and when we leave as one body.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you raised the issue about where the party meets and so where is that? Balizi House has been under renovation and rebuilding for some time now. My understanding is it's somewhere in central Trinidad, the party.
Yeah, we have a place in central in Shogunas in Trinidad where we go and we keep general council.
Yeah, and from what I'm understanding, that is an issue with some people as well. They want to know why central.
Well, under Dr. Raul, he wants to expand the party. He wants to touch base with everybody. He wants to have a Balizi House in Sandy Grande. He wants to have, because our new concept is that we don't allow the membership to come to us. Let us go to the membership. The new body of executive members wants to go to the membership.
And that is a step in that direction.
And that is a step in that direction. By having these satellite offices where you can go and keep general counsel.
Yeah. In your estimation, in your experience with the party, you go back before Mr. Manning, the late Mr. Manning was Prime Minister and so on. And that's a couple of decades well. Has there been any situations such as this, as contentious as this in the party, particularly around the elections?
Well, under Mr. Manning, we used to keep out the elections down at Chagarama's Convention Center. Mr. Manning, yes, was considering opening up the party, but time was not in his favor. He got voted out of office, and the party replaced him with Dr. Rowley.
Right. And before that, Dr. Rowley is known to have challenged significantly for that position in the late 1990s. And to what extent there's any comparison between that challenge and this challenge, you think?
Well, in the past where Dr. Rowley challenged Manning, Mr. Manning welcomed the challenge. When Dr. Rowley failed in his challenge, Mr. Manning bring him back into the fold and kept him within the party. I believe, from my understanding of Dr. Rowley, is that Dr. Rowley welcomes the challenge. He doesn't hold any rancor against anyone, but he wants it to be done in a decent way.
Yeah.
We don't go and brutalize anybody, and taking into consideration, we in the PNM as taking a position, we must not brutalize our leaders. We had brutalized Mr. Manning, and it didn't augur well for us. The party was hurt by that. It created a split in the party, a Manning fraction, a Rowley fraction. That has now come together. That has now subsided. And therefore, we don't want to go about brutalizing Dr. Rowley.
Yeah.
Because it leaves a bitter taste in people's mouth.
So when people are saying that he, as the ultimate leader in the party, as political leader, that the leadership of the party is somehow at a distance from the general membership, to what extent that there's any basis for that?
I think he understands that. I think that the entire party understands that the executive is a bit distant from the membership of the party. And I think that the new executive coming in is working towards building back that relationship with the party. The new executive wants to come to people and for people to tell them what is hurting them, what are their fears and concerns. And I think that they are on the right track. Everybody who is contesting the internal elections for various positions recognizes that we are too distant and too far away from the membership, that they are up there and the membership are down there. And they want to build back that good harmony relationship with the membership.
Yeah, but they would stop at the issue of trying to have these fights in the public, and now it's going to be in the courts.
Yeah, well, they're not comfortable with it, and they want that to be stopped. We don't like that public spat. I, for one, don't like it. Yeah. I, for one, understands it, but I don't like it.
So you think there's merit in the points that she's been making about some of the aspects of how the conduct of the election, and people not sure about the
She could have some good merits, yes, Andy. She could have some good points, yes. But she must come to the panel and trash it out. Go to the elections committee and treat with it. I don't think that it's a good idea going to court. It is not going to augur well for her.
Yeah, because there is history to that kind of thing, differences of views with people at the top levels in the party. I was talking with Fudi Ferreira about it, and he went back into the history of the party and him being a central figure in that, in the leadership, outside of the people who were in parliament. And he talked about several occasions on which he took issue with what was happening in the leadership, but he did that in the councils of the party itself, in the general council and so on.
Well, let me explain something to you. General council used to be on fire. Dr. Williams didn't have his own way. Chambers didn't have his own way. Patrick Manning did not have his own way. The general council is where the membership of the party comes to the general council and questions every member of parliament, questions every minister, rig them over the coals and all of that, have disagreements. But when we leave Balize House, we leave Balize House as one united front.
Yeah.
And that is what is half people now looking to pull away from Karen. They find that the court matter is not going to be in our best interests.
Yeah, I think this is
it's going to further wound the party.
You think this is a strategic error on her part?
I believe so. I believe it's a strategic error. She should have seeked a special meeting, or let her call a special general council, and then take them to task and get them to make the necessary changes that she would have liked. But I do not believe that going to the court is the best option.
Yeah, not from the feedback you're getting.
No, that's not what I'm getting from internal in the party. The party is pretty upset.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for talking with us on this. We're going to have to leave it there. We watch how things develop in the days between now and when that happens, and then when the elections take place in the different phases that advertise as to how it will be conducted. But Barry Garcia, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy, for having me.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we begin our look around the region before we get to our next guest, Mr. Philip Edward Alexander. He's political leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party, about an event they're coming up with, although we understand that they are teaming up with others to form an alliance going into the elections later this year. Stay with us.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Whether it's your family meet and eat, or your own personal getaway retreat, a business trip accommodation, or a couple's celebration, the Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa has room for you. There's always sumptuous, delicious cuisine, and the gym and tennis court for a good workout routine. Then relax by the pool or on the private beach, or just head to the spa. It's also within reach. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Tobago's best beach resort. For reservations, call 639-8571 or check our website.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
welcome back to the program. Let's take a quick look at what's happening. Begin a look around the region before we get to our next guest, Mr. Philip Edward Alexander. We're going to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they're focusing on development of a roadmap to make cities resilient in that country. We get this report from SVG TV News.
With steps being taken to create a resilience roadmap for St. Vincent and the Grenadines under the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Hudson Ned, told stakeholders at a workshop that whatever is prescribed in the roadmap must be achievable, practical and understandable by everyone involved. The roadmap is expected to assist key stakeholders to understand where their cities are in terms of resilience and the action that needs to be taken to reduce risk, improve resilience, and connect with entities that can support implementation of actions for enhancing resilience. Delivering the feature address at the opening ceremony of the three-day workshop on the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative hosted by the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, in collaboration with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. PS Ned said while most of the goals have been set for 2030, which is 7 years away, the various stakeholders must see what can be done to fast-track SVG's responses.
So this roadmap, which we hope will come out of this workshop, will assist key stakeholders like yourselves to understand what is our role. How can we make a contribution that is in sync with each other and contribute to achieving the outcomes planned in this initiative. So I want to just applaud the leadership of NEMO and our friends from the UN, DRR, who have seen fit to, as it were, take charge of this important initiative.
Senior consultant to the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction in Panama, Jair Torres, who also addressed the opening ceremony, said in order for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to become a resilient country by 2030, the national disaster risk strategies have to be localized.
We do this articulation between what is happening and decided at the national level with what is happening at the local level is very important, because decisions can be taken and are being taken at the national level, for instance in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, now with the upcoming country work program that is the national strategy, but how we make that the country work program for reducing disaster risk really go to the local level, where we say where the action is happening, where we really are ensuring that the communities need to be ready, when we really need to reduce disaster risk in order to avoid any catastrophic problem. So it's in that sense that the Making Cities Resilient initiative is trying to provide support to different local governments and national governments in order to really articulate what it has been decided at the national level with what is happening at the local level. And the idea of these 3 days workshops is really to see how we from different sectors, from different entities, can really strengthen our transversal cooperation and really improve that we can work together at the local level in order to have a real an action plan that will determine how we can really improve disaster risk reduction and increase resilience in this particular community that we are analyzing during these 3 days.
Torres noted that the support being provided to SVG to make its cities more resilient are aligned with other support being provided to the country by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction.
Improving risk knowledge by improving data, by improving the way how you collect information and the way how you use this information for decision-making process, for policy design, for investments that are resilient, but as well for passing on a transition from traditional early warning systems to impact-based forecasting. That is something that we are trying to move there. So we really hope that this workshop will be very productive for all of you, that you will have the opportunity to discuss with your colleagues about how really make the national strategy applicable to the local level, at the city level in this case. And we really hope that the outcomes that we expect from these 3 days works that will be really concretizing an action plan will be that you feel really that your different agencies are reflected in that action plan. One of the main issues that we are trying to promote is disaster risk reduction, as the permanent secretary has mentioned, is not the responsibility of the NIMO. The NIMO is here to facilitate the interactions between all of the actors and the authorities and in the communities. But disaster risk reduction is a all-sector approach. It's everybody's business. So everybody has something to contribute from disaster risk reduction and something to receive from disaster risk reduction.
All right, back inside here. Now, we're talking now with Mr. Philip Edward Alexander. He's the political leader of a political organization called the Progressive Empowerment Party. And it's about an event called It's Time, a public event on the state of affairs in Trinidad and Tobago. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning to all of your viewers and listeners.
All right, well, let me begin by saying that I'm delighted that you've agreed to talk with me in this capacity about anything, because my understanding is that you don't have me down in such high regards as to occupy your time.
I think you're one of the most brilliant journalists in the country. The problem is the way the media handles politics and people who are not connected enough to give out advertising contracts, but that's another conversation for another time. The Progressive Empowerment Party does not get its due and its rightful share of media time across all media, and it will forever be a complaint of mine.
You don't think so? You don't think you'll get your how do you measure how much what a share you should have?
I have a team that works at calling all media, all radio, all TV to get interviews for myself as political leader. Third largest political party in the country. I watch Gary Griffith and his one-man show. He could get on every radio and TV station every other morning, but we can't. And I know that it is because we challenge issues that go to the heart of what we consider the corruption in Trinidad and Tobago that many benefit from, including those with vested interest in media. So they do their endeavor best to block us, and we have to take that and do our best. Thank God for social media and every now and then the kindness of people like you.
All right, well, that's a separate issue from what I was getting at, but we could discuss that in some other forum.
Whoever told you that I don't hold you in high regard was telling untruths, because I believe that you are one of the most brilliant journalists we have.
All right, okay, I'm tempted to take your word for it, but let's get to what this event is. It's time.
Another attempt at unifying the public in the face of rampant corruption and the collapse of the country, the looming collapse of the country. We are all standing on the deck of the Titanic, whether we choose to believe it or not. 533 as of last night for murders. And we have a political divide that one is avoiding the conversation, the other is practically celebrating it, as it shows the failure of one. In fact, instead of government and opposition and everything coming together to try and save lives and pretend and prevent this madness from taking place, we have commissioners of police, past, present, future, admitting that the guns that come into this country, the 40,000 guns that the Prime Minister admitted exist, comes through legitimate ports of call, and the head of customs has not been fired. There's no investigation. There's no police. We put police and army on the road to prevent small crimes, but nobody is investigating the large crimes, allowing guns to come into the country to the volume of 40,000 guns. The last time we got a number was 2017. I shudder to think what is the size and volume of the number now.
All right, so where and when this event?
This Saturday at 5 p.m. This Saturday at 5 p.m. It is going to be a mega event. We have live entertainment. We have cultural dancing, Prophet Benjamin, other entertainers. We have the representatives of all faiths doing their blessings, and then many contributions from civil leaders and those in public life, and an open mic for the public. It is a conversation that will be shared with the world as to where we are, where we can go, where we should go, and how we could get there. The people of this country are frustrated. This morning, there are people who cannot see you for whatever reason. The show might be blocked because I'm on it. And I know that sounds weird that I would say that, but I understand you're having difficulty with your broadcast right now. And that's the reality of what we face in Trinidad and Tobago. A tiny little 1.4 million people dot in the ocean that is a narco pipeline to the world, that is corrupt to the core. We've had $3 trillion. Norway had $1.3 trillion. They invested all of their $1.3 trillion into what we've copied to call a heritage fund. And their $1.3 trillion guarantees $242,000 US to every single citizen in Norway, while in Trinidad we broken and in debt. And the only thing that Trinidadians are inheriting, their children and their grandchildren, are all of these schemes and loans and credits that the government is borrowing from alphabet soups of companies, of organizations like the IDB and China and Venezuela and others. None of this should be allowed to continue. But it is the reality of a nation divided by race, where political string pullers operate the two races to the disadvantage of all.
But let's say your party gets into office, whether on its own strength or in alliance with others. What would be different in terms of our international relations? And we are continuing to be a developing country where we need assistance from multilateral lending agencies, as they call them, different kinds of partnerships with institutions that we must go to. How is that going to be any different?
Okay, first of all, we will not enter into any alliances with anybody. We have no interest. I, Philip Edward Alexander, have no interest in that. At 55 years old, my only purpose in politics is to try to rescue my country. And if that is not possible, I will go my merry way. With regards to borrowing money, there will always be need for development funding, short-term credit and stuff if you don't have proper management of your cash flow. We had massive cash flow. We've had oil booms, sugar booms, gas booms, cocoa booms. Trinidad should be rich for centuries to come. Put that aside. Would we need to borrow money from the IDB to pave roads when we've had 5 loans before to pave roads, and we had a gasoline tax to pave roads, and we have budget allocations to pave roads, and we never fix the roads? Would it make sense to peel it back and go and look at what actually passes as road construction in this country? The media sees what I see when they share images of road collapse throughout the country, a ribbon of tar on top of dirt. Where's the foundation for the road? For the roads? Where are those conversations? We're not having them because it's in nobody's best interest to have them, because at the end of the day, it's an old boys club that's running Trinidad and Tobago, and they're benefiting from all of the corruption and all of the mismanagement financially. So where do we go as a nation under this and continue forward like this and expect anything good to come from it?
And how would you guarantee the public that you would do it differently?
My brother, I have been an activist. Gary Griffith calls me an activist, not a politician. I think that's the greatest compliment anybody ever told me. I've been an activist for 3 decades of my life. I have assisted the homeless, the orphans, the disabled. I am responsible for handicap parking in this country. We pushed for and forced through the Children's Authority law and the Dangerous Dog Act that while a little boy was savagely bitten this past couple of weeks going here, that followed on years of tens of people dying every year from dog bite. We fixed things. We've already fixed things. Philip will fix it as a successful campaign because people are turning to me. I hold no office. I get no funding. And we get stuff done for people. Again, there are people this morning who woke up to no water in a country that has a rainforest climate. And if the media doesn't understand what that means, I want to explain it to you. We get 100 million times more water falling for free on this country every year than we could ever possibly use. And we take it in our water management system designed to throw the water into the sea and then spend $1 billion every year desalinating seawater. This country is a contradiction and an oxymoron. We carry on as if all of this is politics. I hope and pray that there is a God, because justice will not exist in Trinidad and Tobago as long as this corruption continues to operate the nation state. If I can tell you one thing, yesterday the Express editorial published what I could only believe is a compilation of my words. And one of the things that they admitted to yesterday is our justice system presides over a human rights atrocity that nobody is speaking about in this country, and we should be dealing with it every day. There are young men and possibly women languishing in jail for years longer than they should. And the president, who has the power, the director of public prosecutions, who has the power, the chief justice, who has the power, and the commissioner of police, who have the power to terminate those matters and set these people free. People who have been in jail, thousands of people incarcerated, who have been in jail longer than they should have been, could have been if they were sentenced to the maximum. They're still there. And but for the money to be able to afford bail or a lawyer, it's stuck in a system where it took 25 years for our justice system to find the person who broke into Stevens and Johnson's guilty 2 decades after Stevens and Johnson's closed down. We have mad crises in this country, and we cannot continue to be distracted by foolishness or playing tribal, racist, divisive politics to our demise.
Isn't that the nature of the democracy and of just governance? Because there are countries that are not democracies where people are given death sentences and them kinds of things for opposing what the people in power are doing. There doesn't seem to be, wherever you look, countries that are developed, countries that are developing, countries that are underdeveloped, the same kinds of issues. You have the question of being resource rich, but reality in people's lives, there's a gap between that.
A lot of things you said there. I want to start from the end and go back to the beginning. Dubai, Singapore, Norway are examples of the opposite. Dubai, Singapore, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Switzerland, Iceland are countries that took whatever mega resources they had and put it to work for the people. Knowing that there are countries that also have human rights atrocities taking place is no justification for us. You, Andy Johnson, have power. I, Philip Alexander, have power. Our power is limited to what we can do with our voices, but still we have power. If your son or daughter or wife or father or friend was languishing in a jail cell this morning, you would use your power for them. We need to use our power for people we don't know. We need to use our power for the weak. That's the purpose of power. And if we don't, Trinidad is a joke.
You said if we don't, what?
Trinidad is a joke. If no office holder cares, and if you as media and me as activists don't care, this country's not a real country, it's a joke. You cannot tell me this morning that after what I just said, you do not call for the country to shut down and address that. One person losing their freedom, their essential liberty for injustice presided over by our justice system is unacceptable. The last time per capita the world faced such atrocities, it went to war.
And for you to fix it, you think that you need to get more presence in the public space, and that is not happening.
My friend, the only reason I'm in politics is because being an activist is not enough to solve it. Trinidad is a greedy, corrupt little nation. Right now, we are deficit financing to steal money at a government level. And you know everything that I am saying is true, and everybody in the media and everybody in every version of civil society knows what I am saying is true. And it's like we're all standing dumbstruck waiting for the ship to sink. When we could get together and work in harmony to fix it, to rescue it, this shouldn't continue. A 60-year-old country that had $3 trillion in revenue should not be broken in debt because we have Napa and Sapa and Taruba. What do we have to show for it? The things that are not falling apart were built by the Queen and the Americans. Everything that we've built is collapsing around us. Look at it. This is the conversation we have to have. If I am not saying it, who is? Who's coming to tell you this? Everybody is nakedly self-serving. The entire NTA that Gary Griffith formed is a way to strong-arm himself back into a public office and the commissioner's job. We need politicians who are activists again. We need people fighting for people who don't have power, who don't have water in the taps this morning. Trinidad buys more tanks and water pumps per capita than any country in the world. And we have more water falling on Diego Martin alone than the country could use. This is a joke. That we allow this to continue playing African Indian politics. It's a joke. This is not real. This is somebody in heaven making a joke on all of us, because real people wouldn't make this as a deliberate decision if we had set out to plan this country.
But your message is getting across to who it should. You don't think that so this kind of traditional media is not where your major audience is. And from my understanding, you as well as other members of your team are quite savvy with other forms of media, and that's where the action is. That's where the young people are.
I agree with you 100%, but a large part of my following are what we call the golden girls, the elders and the ladies in society support the Progressive Empowerment Party because they seem to be intelligent enough to be first adopters to change. But we have a massive groundswell of support and it's growing, and I think on Saturday, the 19th of November, people will see a large turnout. But I want to tell you something, Andy. Whether or not everything you said was true or not, I am entitled under the Constitution, 3 articles of the Constitution guarantees me my right to equal time on the media. All of the media occupy spaces that belong to the taxpayers. Their right to broadcast belongs to the taxpayers. Robbing the taxpayers of any version of an option is misbehavior in public office.
So what?
Let me just say one more thing, please. If the Progressive Empowerment Party had its rightful share of media, by now it would either be in government or very close to it, and there would be no need for fake parties to be formed because people would know that there is an actual political option that is a counterbalance to the corruption and racist tribal nonsense of the PNM and the UNC.
Where does it say now? Who measures the kind of presence that anybody has in this is private media? Quite apart from state media, and how do you?
Your right to broadcast is owned. The bandwidth is owned by the taxpayers. You pay. You get permission from the organizations of state that give permission for radio licenses and TV licenses. Your ability to broadcast is owned by the taxpayers that pays the salaries of the government and makes them state. That's how it works. But you should research what equal time laws are. A prime minister of Israel was jailed for manipulating equal time laws in Israel for politics. This is not a real country. In a real country, when Arnold Schwarzenegger threw his hat in the ring for governor of California, the Federal Communication Commission sent a letter to all TV and cable companies within a 3-mile radius of California to tell them, if you broadcast any Arnold Schwarzenegger shows during the 6 weeks of the election, you will have to give each and every one of his opponents equal time. That's what it means. It means that the media and ethics in media should force journalists to be ashamed. Ethics in media should tell you, even if I don't like Philip Edward Alexander, if I disagree with his tone, if I don't like his glasses or the way they sit on his nose, it doesn't matter because he's a political option. And we should make all political options available to all the people so they could make an informed decision, which is the purpose of media.
And you insist that you don't get as much media attention as you think you ought to.
Attention. And we put out releases that are ignored. We champion issues. The last 5 big issues in this country, including Andrea Barrett, the Candlelight Movement, before divers that drowned in Paria, were all because of Philip Edward Alexander, the Progressive Empowerment Party, and social media. We don't allow this to keep us back. We're still the 3rd largest political party country, and I call it the 3rd largest because they won't test us, they won't poll us, they won't bring us on television, live television for debate. And I tell you something, and you can tell your superiors this, that if you all were able to pull off a debate with the political leaders of the top 5-6 parties, the numbers, the value, the financial value will be incalculable. The people of Trinidad and Tobago are being robbed by media. And I say this to you this morning, not that I care anymore. I just need to say it, to put it on record, to continuously put it on record. I say it to you, Andy Johnson, as one of the next generation of seniors in media, the generation above you all dying out. You there now, as a senior, somebody in conversation that could ask, are 2 7- and 15-minute interviews with TV6 for the Progressive Empowerment Party in the last 5 years enough? Gary Griffith has launched an NTA with himself, his wife, and his employees. And he's had more interviews last week than I've had in the last 7 years. Prior to there being a progressive empowerment party, I was a media darling. Prior to me challenging the contract mafia and exposing the 1% and the naked corruption of the country, I was on every TV station when I was nothing but an activist. How funny is that? I have hundreds of pages of top stories, letter of the day, featured letter. Your colleague Maxi Coffee hired me as a columnist. In the Mirror, I was the only columnist that was allowed to write for the weekday and the weekend. There was a day there was a letter from Philip Alexander published in the Guardian, Express, and Newsday, 3 different letters. I know to myself, when Iowa George told me about the ban that called him and tell him if you bring Philip on the station again, you will lose state advertising. That's misbehavior in public office. That's corruption. I can't get Iowa George to admit to that. I can't get Iowa George into a courtroom to get that person charged with misbehavior in public office. The Integrity Commission should want to weigh in on all of this. And at the end of the day, brother, it is a fight and a struggle, like every fight or every struggle. And I think that we are well beyond the part of the conversation where we discuss if it's affecting us or not. It is obviously affecting us.
All right, I want to thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for having me, Andy.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we talk some other stuff about what contributes to flooding in the country. And this lady is saying that it is because of a serial violation of the building codes. People are building or being allowed to build where they shouldn't in too many parts of the country. Stay with us.
Is your WESN News of the Hour. I am Marquis Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Government signs $40 million US loan agreement to finance drainage works. 400 acres of Chatham land to be operationalized for YHAP. CPO, prisons and police sign agreement on grievance procedures for officers. And internationally, football players were targeted in the University of Virginia killings. Now for the details. Finance Minister Colin Mimber has signed 2 loan agreements with the CAF Development Bank of Latin America, with the intention to provide funding for a technical assistance project on flood prevention, as well as to boost digital transformation. The signing took place at the Diplomatic Center, St. Anne's, on Tuesday. According to the Ministry of Finance, Imbert and Executive President of CAF, Sergio Diaz-Granados, signed the agreement for a US $120 million loan to support government's ongoing efforts to strengthen the digital economy and society by delivering more efficient services to citizens and fostering digital inclusion. A US $40 million loan to finance drainage works in Caroni, Caparo, South Oropouche and North Oropouche basins, as well as in Port of Spain. The minister also signed an immunities and a privilege agreement designed to facilitate the operations of CAF's regional office. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley was also present to witness the signing. 400 acres of agricultural land in Chatham will be operationalized in 2023 for the Youth Agricultural Homestead Program. This is according to the line ministry of the program, the Ministry of Youth Development. It will see the lands upgraded with starter homes, roads, drainage, access infrastructure, and more for 180 successful students of the program. When fully functional, these lands will produce a yield of 360 acres. The ministry says the land for the program was provided by Petrotrin and the development process will be facilitated by the Land Settlement Agency. An agreement on the conduct of grievance procedures for prisons and police officers has been formalized with the Chief Personnel Officer, according to its statement issued by the CPO's office. On Tuesday, Commander Dr. Darrell Dindial signed memoranda of agreements with the associations representing the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service for the establishment of formal grievance procedures for their officers, governing issues which fall within the statutory remit of the Personnel Department. The signing of the MOAs reinforced the state's commitment to treating with dissatisfaction among officers caused by the inaccurate interpretation and administration of the terms and conditions, and undue delays in the resolution of complaints made, the release from the CPO's office explained. Some 100 persons, including leadership of the police and prison service associations and selective administrative staff in the Ministry of National Security, are expected to undergo a comprehensive training program to sensitize and educate them on the purpose and usage of the grievance procedures prior to their implementation in March 2023. In international news, 3 football players who were shot and killed at the University of Virginia were deliberately targeted, prosecutors allege. New details emerged as the suspect appeared in court for the first time since the late Sunday shooting, which also injured 2 others. A judge on Wednesday ordered that the suspect be held without bond. He did not enter a plea on Wednesday and was temporarily appointed a public defender. 22-year-old Christopher Darnell Jones Jr. allegedly opened fire on his schoolmates on a bus after they had just returned to campus from a field trip to see a play in Washington, D.C. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Here's your chance to win a brand new Mazda CX-30, courtesy Movietown. Simply spend $200 or more at dbesttoys.com, Movietown, Port of Spain. Promotion ends November 12th.
Visit the store, you better shop online. You better call us now, I'm telling you why. dbesttoys.com is Movietown, Port of Spain. Hey!
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good
for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time. Welcome back to the program. There's a major lack of enforcement of building codes in Trinidad and Tobago, allowing unscrupulous homeowners and business people to construct on riverbanks, ultimately causing flooding. And that's the view of Ms. Grace Lefore, somebody who she's a member of the Society of Planners in Trinidad and Tobago. We will be talking with her moments from now about that. But right now, let's continue taking a look around the region. We want to go to Guyana at this point, where the opposition leader there dismissed a suggestion by the British High Commissioner that the existing voters list could be used with current safeguards for the local government election that's scheduled for early next year. We have this report from News Force Guyana.
Opposition leader Aubrey Norton today chided the British High Commissioner Jane Miller over statements she made about the voters list, describing her statements as out of place and against the wishes of the Guyanese people. Last week, the UK diplomat was quoted in the media as saying that the current voters list can be used for future elections once there are enough safeguards. But at a press conference today, the opposition leader said such a position will not be accepted in the UK itself, which has strict voting mechanisms in place.
The British High Commissioner must not be allowed to go against the wishes of the Guyanese people. While we pursue good relations with all countries, we are committed to ensuring our decisions are made by the people of Guyana, and therefore we abhor the attempt by any diplomat to impose their will on the people of Guyana.
Mr. Norton said it has long been concluded that the current voters list is bloated and does not represent the true voting population of the country, and therefore outside intervention to state to the contrary will not be welcomed.
What is more worrying is that the British High Commission was informed about the reality surrounding the list when the APNU met with the ABCE countries. It is interesting that the ABC countries choose to be briefed together, but the British High Commissioner chose to go it all alone in making her ill-informed comments.
The opposition leader said the British High Commissioner must be reminded that all the observer missions at the last general and regional elections recommended that the Guyana Elections Commission undertakes a process to create a new voters list. Norton said his party has also called for the use of biometrics at the place of poll, and if the safeguards that the British High Commissioner was referring to include biometrics, then that is a starting point, although generally he said her comments were ill-informed.
I have no doubt that the British High Commission has a right to make a pronouncement. What I, however, must also be acknowledged is that we also have a right to make pronouncement on any pronouncement that is made. And our pronouncement on this is one, the entire observer group at the 2020 election called for a clean voters list. And therefore the pronouncement seems antithetical to what the British, the Carter Center, CARICOM all were saying.
In the final analysis, the opposition leader said the decision will have to be made by the Guyanese people. He said his party will continue the campaign for a new voters list.
All right, so this lady, Grace Lefore, among the things she said in an interview in The Guardian a couple of days ago, that recent flooding in the country is being caused by building on riverbanks. She said that's a major problem. She says it violates the 45-meter building setback that was imposed by the Town and Country Planning Division years ago. And these things are not being paid attention to, and these things, as much as anything else, what is leading to the flooding, the continuous flooding in Trinidad and Tobago. Good to see you, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson.
All right, are you speaking?
Yeah, and that is only a small part. The interviewer was focused on the business of building on riverbanks, but that is only a small part of the problem with enforcement. We have people, one of the major problems, major causes of flooding is what is happening in the northern range. You have developments going on without proper safeguards, without adequate drainage infrastructure. And I have some pictures that I was hoping to have shown, but I don't want to risk messing the thing up after initial difficulties.
Yes.
But there are people who are building, you buy a piece of land because of the view and then you proceed to excavate it. And so there are a lot of issues with hillside development. There's a study that was done by UE a few years ago that is reported in the last State of the Environment report that was done in 2005 that links directly what is happening in the northern range and the upper St. Joseph watershed, for example, with flooding that was taking place at that time. This was in the early 2000s. Directly links it with housing developments and the way in which land is prepared for construction. So it's not just the people who are building on the riverbanks and sometimes in the river courses. It's not just on the riverbanks. But generally, we have a problem all around with enforcement in this country. As everything else, enforcement of traffic regulations, everything is just a kind of free-for-all that I don't know what we can do to address that.
So what is the effectiveness then in this respect of your organization, the Society of Planners, which ought to be held in a kind of particular kind of esteem addressing matters like this?
Well, we are comprised of planners in all walks of the profession. We have some of our members directly with Town and Country Planning Division, but most are not. So we don't have a whole lot of influence with respect to policy making, which is something we need to change and get into to a much greater extent. The issue of policy formulation. We have this hope on the horizon because we have new legislation, which is the Planning and Facilitation of Development Act, which deals very properly, I would say, with the issue of enforcement. There's an enforcement unit that's to be set up under that legislation that is properly staffed. So there's some hope there, but in terms of what we can do as a society, it's basically to one of the important things I think as a society that we're doing, and this is what we're doing here to some extent this morning, is public education. Because a lot of what is happening with flooding, for instance, has to do with the way in which people behave. People throw their mattresses into water courses, and that is a separate issue in that, what do you do with a mattress that you no longer have? We have also to get the regional corporations to step up their act in providing waste collection infrastructure for bulky waste. Okay? So the Society of Planners can do some public education, and again, this is some of what we're doing, and I would say thanks to you, Mr. Johnson, for inviting me on the program for that purpose. Partly.
Yeah, well, I can't take all the credit because there were other people involved who found that we should be having this discussion. But education is one thing, but I think what you're saying, or some part of what I get you to be understood from what you're saying, is that even over and above education, there is a need for visible enforcement, which is not happening, because sometimes we only learn when we're punished for doing what we shouldn't be doing. And that is not happening.
Correct. Yeah, and the Town and Country Planning Division does put a lot of resources into enforcing, but then nothing happens. We've had some very public cases that have been in the media that I was hoping would have had a resolution in a way that would let the public know what can happen if they flout the town and country planning regulations and standards. But there's been no change.
What is the for example, like which issue? Because a lot of times there are a lot of people. I mean, I just finished talking with Philip Edward Alexander, and he was making an issue about the fact that his organization doesn't get the airing and the publicity it deserves because of the media rules in the country and so on. But a lot of times, people believe that if more coverage will deliver the results that they seek, but very often that does not be turns out to be not to be the case. And where the issue is, what some people call the big stick approach, people believe that is not applied sufficiently, and this is a case in which that might be so.
That's correct. We have. I mean, I think every time I leave my house, I see something that I know could not have been approved. And it remains. We have been, the Society of Planners actually very recently hosted the Woodbrook Residents Committee to assist them in forcing participation in what is happening in Woodbrook. And one of the very frustrating things about Woodbrook for me is that one of the last assignments that I had, was it like 20 years ago when I last worked in Town and Country Planning Division, was doing a policies for Woodbrook. And you do your plans and policies, and there's a lot of resources and time that go into doing plans and policies. And then nothing happens. So you do a policy, and then the next day you see all around you the developers doing exactly what the policy says not to do. And it continues. And what happens is policy is what unauthorized development is what is driving policy as opposed to the other way around. So this thing is on the ground, and the developer says, well, it's here already. And so this has to be accepted. And then, so we keep doing the plans and the policies to no effect really with enforcement. But we need to get really serious with enforcement.
Yeah, and what do you think? The reason why permission is given in circumstances where they shouldn't be given? A lot of people point to the possibility of corruption, inducements being passed, and so on. But is that all there is to it, or there are differences of opinion between the authorizers as opposed to the professionals like yourself who say, well, this should happen or shouldn't happen?
Hopefully the professionals would have done whatever is required to have come up with the decisions that are made. I worked in the Town and Country Planning Division for a very long time. I am not aware of anybody, and there's, we are a country of old talk and bacchanal. I do not know of anybody who takes bribes. I know certainly I didn't. But the thing is, what the problem is that everybody has his own interest in mind. So you come and you want to do something that is against policy, and you get refused. And you think that it's because you didn't pass some money, Yeah. I worked in a division for a very long time, and I am telling you, I have never had any serious offers of anything, thank God. You had a couple of people who were really very innocently, really grateful that they got through with something that was a problem. And like a little old lady in Point Fortin, for instance, I remember a few years ago. And then there was a gentleman on the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway who was having a difficulty, and I think I went out of the way to get the Highways Division to assist and give advice. And one of the moments of my career was seeing that man's face when I told him he was going to get his approval to build his house. And so his natural reaction was, you will see me, eh? And I know what that means. And so I gave him this speech about that being against the law and that he should not do that. But I imagine like everywhere else, there's corruption. I am not, like I say, I'm not aware of any such cases, and I am hoping that if there are, that they would have been made public.
All right. So in that case, why do you think he was having problems getting the permission that you saw no difficulty?
It had to do with the business of the setback from the highway. I remember, because I think he was wanting to erect the house a little closer to the highway reserve than it should have been erected, and so that was refused a number of times. And then I got into the picture, and I went myself to the highways division and sat with them, and we were able to sort it out, and he did get his permission. But again, I will never forget the look on that man's face when he said he was, and so his perception was that I did something that I needed to be paid for. And this is a very innocent person.
Yeah. So did he feel then that he was being turned down because people were silently expecting that he would come up something?
Well, that's possible. That's possible. And again, I'll tell you, I'll give you some anecdotal story. There was one Friday, I remember 2 gentlemen coming to see me in the office. One of them was somebody who was wanting to get approval to do something, and the other person was coming with him for support. And they gave me a long story about one of our officers, called by name, who came to the man's house on Saturday to tell him that if he don't bring money, they're going to break down his house. And it went on like this. And then finally I said, do you mind if I call this person in? Because this person was, one of the inspectors was actually on the job at the time. And they said no. So I called this man in. And the man says, that is not the man. So you get all these stories, and you have to take everything you hear with a grain of salt. I am not going to put my hand in fire for anybody, but I am not at all aware of any situations in the Town and Country Plan Division in which money was paid to do anything. I mean, why would you risk your career by facilitating something that is against policy, that is so visible? It's not as if it's something that will go undetected. Something is visible. Somebody puts up a house and the questions arise. How did this person get approval? I don't know anybody who would do that.
All right. I just want to, there are a couple of things I want to go on still in a couple of minutes we have. But if a yes or no to this would suffice for this question, you think the question of the constant allegations about corruption in the public space, you think they're overblown? Because sometimes, that is not what happens. People may, for all kinds of different reasons, grant things that become questionable, wanting to give somebody a pass because you figure you don't want to blank them for whatever reason. But everything gets thrown into this pot about corruption, allegations of corruption.
I can't say that it's overblown. I'm sure it happens. But it's just because of the perception that we have corruption in all spheres. So that if somebody gets approval for something, it means that it was done corruptly.
Yes. All right. So let's go back to where we began. From what you said, my understanding of what you're saying there is that because of what is happening on the hills in and around Port of Spain, that contributes to the flooding, and the Caroni River bursts its banks, and you have flooding in different parts of the country. Although the understanding is that because some places are what are known as low-lying areas, and therefore they are always susceptible to flooding when there's heavy rain.
That's great. That's actually what I thought we were going to talk about this morning, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Caroni, so I'm going to talk about the Caroni River Basin because I was part of a study that was done, I think 8 or 10 years ago, on the Caroni River drainage issues in the Caroni River Basin. So I can answer those questions.
Yes. Go ahead.
There are two sets of factors that cause flooding. And that's the first thing we have to talk about when we talk about flooding. What are the causes? One has to do with the natural, then some natural factors. In the Caroni River Basin, we talk about the fact, first of all, that it's, there's a lot of the basin is floodplain, and a floodplain is a floodplain. It has a hydrometric function to store flood water. It's not a place that you build on, you know? So there's that. And there's the issue of the northern range. Again, we're focusing on the Caroni River Basin in response to your question. Northern range, which is steeply sloping, so that is a factor. You have runoff from northern range, the lands in the northern range. And then the soils in the Caroni River Basin are low permeability. So in other words, there's not much.
They can't hold much moisture.
Correct, correct. So those are the three natural factors. And then there's the issue of the human factor. Again, we can come back to the hillside development. And the fact that people go up there. I have this picture that I thought I would show, but I don't want to mess this thing up again. The way in which people bulldoze land, and it is not a little squatter who goes up there, and I'm not advocating by any squatting by any means. It's not a little man who goes up there with a few pieces of 2x4 and some hammer and some nails and the bricks. It is the bulldozers that cause the problem in terms of squatting.
For the people with money who want to build these massive structures.
And the thing is, no, but you can build a massive structure, you know, but it can be done sensitive to the topography. It doesn't have to be to carve out a piece of land to put a house on. You can build a massive structure if you want, and that is not a problem. And we have no problem in principle with hillside development. It's just that it has to be done cognizant of the impact of not doing it correctly. So those are the issues. Of course, the issue of drainage infrastructure.
All right, so let's make a deal. You get the pictures to us. We process them here, and we schedule or we do a reschedule on this. You come in.
Okay, great.
And we have another discussion taken up from that because in the mix
I know you're running out of time.
Yeah, in the mix there's the whole question of climate change and its impact on weather systems and so on. So that's a contributing factor.
Yes,
right?
I would love to talk to you about that, Mr. Johnson.
So we will do a reschedule, but thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's Grace Lefuri, head of the Society of Planners in Trinidad and Tobago. What causes some of what we see because of the weather patterns and the impact of that on people's lives in different parts of the country. That's our broadcast for this morning. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank our guests. We tell you can keep in touch with us here always at the AM Prime. You can send your emails to amprime@WESNCC. We tell you that in half an hour there'll be news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. But for now, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.